at the end. Thank you very much. That was very inspiring. I also now have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Chauncey Goss, that I think part of the introduction is already done. Chauncey is the founder and managing partner of Goss Practical Solutions, a firm that provides federal fiscal policy analysis and budget forecasting. Prior to starting that, he served as Deputy Staff Director and Director of Budget Review for the House Budget Committee under Paul Ryan. And before working on Capitol Hill, he worked for the Executive Office of the President in the Office of Management and Budget's National Security Division. As a longtime resident of Southwest Florida, Goss first became involved with water quality issues when he worked as the Executive Director of the Gasparilla Island Conservation and Improvement Association on Boca Grande in the early 1990s. He grew up in Sanibel Island and currently lives there with his wife and 3 sons. He's very active in his community, as you've heard, and serves as an elected member of the Sanibel City Council. He's also served as an appointed member to the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Programs Management Committee. He has a BA in Area Studies, Political Science, Environmental Studies, and English from Rollins College and a master's degree in Public Policy from Georgetown University. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Goss. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Nick, very much. And thank you, Jack, and thank you for mentioning my dad. He's a great influence on me, and I'm incredibly proud of him and all he's done to set us up for the next generation. I have 3 sons, so I hope in 30 years we are having this conversation and they're part of it. So good afternoon. Thanks for sticking around. The good news is I don't have a ton to say. The bad news is I'm not Michael Grunwald, for those of you who were here 2 years ago. But you know, after reading through the schedule of hundreds of interesting workshop and discussions that took place, I know the bar has been set really high for a non-scientist. And although my remarks probably lack the technical gravitas that you may be used to and you've heard this week, I do hope they convey the passion, the urgency, and the singleness of mind that I have when I approach this service. And my name is Chauncey Goss, and I am chairman of the governing board of the South Florida Water Management District. And I want to thank the university very much, and I want to thank all the sponsors and all the GEER participants for their hard work putting on this conference. It's great to see this room absolutely full, and it's almost 6 o'clock. I'm blown away. I wish I could have listened in on any number of these discussions, because they're all so relevant to everything that we're trying to do and accomplish as governing board members. And I'm honored, honestly a little bit intimidated, to be standing in front of this esteemed group of scientists who are out in the field, or in this case, in the ridges and sloughs every day, working hard to advance our scientific knowledge of Florida's wetlands. You guys are all truly, and gals, are truly the tip of the spear when it comes to understanding this unique ecosystem, and through that understanding, saving it for the future generations we just talked about. And for anyone who says science doesn't matter, or it's boring numbers, or reports that don't make a difference, I challenge them to look at what you've been discussing the last couple of days here. It's a literal smorgasbord, not only of interesting science, but more importantly to me, of useful science that makes a difference in the real world, right here, right now, in our Everglades. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you all do every day. Now, since I haven't had a chance to meet most of you, I know a couple of you, I'd like to tell you about myself and why responsible resource management and environmental restoration are really important to me. As you've heard, I grew up on Sanibel. It's a region that's managed by the district. It's, for those of you who don't know, it's on the southwest coast where the Caloosahatchee Estuary meets the Gulf of Mexico. My parents moved to Sanibel in 1970. It was very different back then. They moved there really for the quality of life. It's the same reason most people move to Florida today. And my wife and I have been fortunate enough to raise our 3 sons on the island. My dad helped incorporate the island. He served as its first mayor. And the catalyst for incorporation at that time was Lee County's plan to develop the island far beyond what the island residents really thought the island could stand. So I grew up at the dinner table talking about things like land use planning, restoration strategies, resource management challenges, and water quality issues. And this is true. We had a dog named Kloop, which stands for Comprehensive Land Use Plan, and a dog. Try explaining that to your friends. And a dog named Rogo, which stands for Rate of Growth Ordinance. So, in college, I was fortunate enough to have been able to study Florida's environment through the lens of environmental science, political science, and literature. And I remember one book that still sticks with me. It had an impact on me then. It's Ian McHarg's Design with Nature. And he talked a lot about subjugation of natural systems in that book, and the fact that we can do it, but there's always the should we do it, and what are the costs of doing it? And that's something that we're finding out now, particularly as I'm getting more and more involved in this as we look forward and we're trying to undo some of the things we've done. So as a councilman for the city of Sanibel, I watched in horror as our community attempted to deal with the consequence of water releases in 2013, in 2016, and in 2018. In the middle of that, in 2017, not to leave that one out, we had Hurricane Irma. So in the last 6 years, we've had 4 years that have been really tough. And as a result of that, I've watched the Southwest Florida economy take just an incredibly dramatic hit as a result of poor water quality. And that hit has impacted not only our ecosystems, which are important, but it's impacted my friends, my neighbors, their businesses, our way of lives. And those consequences and negative impacts are still evident on Sanibel, in the Caloosahatchee, in the St. Lucie, throughout the Everglades, all the way down to Florida Bay. You all see that every day in your research. My neighbors and I see that every day in our lives. I just want to recount one thought I have when I was thinking about what I was going to say. It's a memory that sticks with me, and I'll just explain the memory to you. It was a really clear, crisp day. It was a weekend day, and it was in August, and it's one of those days that you don't see in the summer a lot when the humidity drops down, and for whatever reason, it's like God's just giving you a gift, and it's just gorgeous, and everything seems really bright. And so I'm driving across the causeway. I was coming back onto the island, and I looked south, and I could see the high-rises in Bonita because it was so clear, and there wasn't much humidity. And I was sort of overcome by a sense of disquietude as I looked. As something was off on this gorgeous weekend day, and I realized that there wasn't a boat on the water, there wasn't a bird in the sky, there wasn't a person on the spoil islands that make up the county parks that separate the bridges. It was like one of those Armageddon movies. There's just nothing around. And I had a really tough time, just not shedding a tear for the place that's been so good to me and the place where I grew up. And so that helps for me to explain to you sort of my state of mind, as the lawyers would say, and you'll understand my passion for fixing those impacts and restoring water quality throughout the Everglades, as well as addressing issues like sea level rise, protecting the coasts and communities of South Florida, where I live. And this is honestly where you come in. The only way to know where to start and what to do is by following the latest science gathered by those of you here today. We have really one shot at saving the Everglades. Once they're gone, they're gone. So your job is to provide me with the best science you have. My job, and the job of my colleagues on the governing board, is to listen to you. To listen to the science, to listen to the people who depend on our water resources, and to create and foster a transparent environment for meaningful discussion about what you've found. By doing that, I know that we're going to get that one shot right. Now, Jack talked a little bit about Governor DeSantis, and he's absolutely right. We have Dr. Tom Fraser as our new chief scientist. That's absolutely wonderful news. Now, the governor did this because science is recognized as a guiding light that shines our way to the answer. It's going to be the same at the district. We're going to work with Dr. Fraser, and science will be the bedrock from which we build. Restoring water quality and having open and transparent conversations about the best way forward, that's critically important to me, and that's really one of the reasons I agreed to serve when Governor DeSantis asked me to. And I assure you it's also true of my colleagues on the governing board. Now look, I don't know them all well. We've only had 2 meetings, 1 Senate confirmation, and 1 workshop. But I can tell you I'm absolutely in awe of their intelligence, their passion, and their desire along with me to get this right. So we understand the importance of listening to science, and actually one of our governing board members, Cheryl Meads, is a scientist herself. So I promise you, we're going to listen to the valuable knowledge you're gathering about how to restore the Everglades, and we're going to use it to inform our decisions. And the district, as you know, takes science seriously, and I want to ensure we continue to collaborate with our partners. Many are in this room today. The district's going to continue to use its staff of hundreds of scientists and engineers to learn more about how to restore the Everglades, as well as helping to model the impacts of sea level rise on flood protection. But we're not just going to develop that knowledge, we're going to share it, and we're going to share it with the public and groups like yourselves, and we're going to work with other agencies and partners to advance scientific knowledge of all our water resources. So sharing sound science that makes up the bedrock of our decisions, it helps everyone's knowledge base grow, including our own, and it leads to better management of our natural resources. For instance, and you all know about this, I'm preaching to the choir, the DB Hydro browser database found at our website, shameless plug, www.sfwmd.gov. Perfect example of a tool that's open to all scientists. Massive online public database, some 4,000 documents, allows the public to search for data, everything from water quality to groundwater data, going back decades throughout the district's 16-county area. Yeah, I know our natural resource director uses this all the time on Sanibel, and I've talked to him about it frequently. It's a great resource. And every year we share the latest data on South Florida's environmental conditions in the annual South Florida Environmental Report. The latest three-volume report and the highlights were published just last month in March and can also be found on the district's website, which I will not say again. The district spent some 43 of its scientific staff to this conference, and we're going to be frequent and full participants in other gatherings, sharing the latest scientific knowledge. We're going to continue to work with groups like Recover, the Everglades National Park, the Science Coordination Group, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the Florida University System to sponsor studies building our scientific base that is so important to unraveling the complexities of our mission. We'll work with the 4-county compact tackling sea level rise issues to help model the impacts of sea level rise. We'll continue to work with USGS, another sponsor of this conference, to map saltwater infiltration that could threaten the water supplies of more than 8.1 million South Floridians. That's why we're co-sponsors and participants of a study you may have heard about looking at the collapse of peat soils in the Everglades in relation to sea level rise. So in short, I can promise you that at the district, we're going to work with anyone who's serious about advancing science, and we're going to share that knowledge with anyone who wants to listen. So science is at the table with a loud voice at the district, as well as with the other agencies involved in this fight for the Everglades. I'm actually really excited about the progress that's been discussed over the past couple days here, and I'm really proud of the district scientists who decided to come to this and who contributed. Because we're so dependent on good science guiding the way, I'm even more excited to see the progress we're going to have made when this conference meets again in 2 years. So thank you all for being here, and since I'm the last speaker, I think that's it.
And I think since you guys have been so good to be here and stay till 6 o'clock, we're going to forego the formal question and answer session. Maybe if you have some burning questions you want to ask of these two gentlemen, come up to the front. But again, I want to thank you one last time for making this a very successful conference. Thank you and have a great trip back. Thank you.